Igbo kwen, yeah. Cha 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 cha. Igbo kwezu onu, yeah. Oko nyamili, nyamili.
And that is what
Nyamili. Koko nyamiri, nyamiri, koko nyamiri, Ibole, Ibole, Ibobono, Ndamamihe, Ibole, Ibole, Ibobono, Ndamamihe, Ebulanyelu, Anamabara na ihe dị njọ ma na-emezi konye ofeke anamabara nụ n'ihe dị njọ ma na-emezi konye ofeke Igbo bụ ndị ike ụmụ Igbo bụ ndị ike ụmụ Igbo bụ ndị ike ụmụ Igbo bụ ndị ike Koko nyamini, nyamini. Ndewo, good morning, Otitenile Diri Chineke. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so honored that you found the time to join us today. So what we're going to do first and foremost is offer our libations. As you all know, libations is our way of honoring the ancestors and certainly honoring our own selves so that someday we will too become ancestors. I'm going to play the libations video and we'll be right back. Afrunge, I see you. I hope you see me. As I pour libations today, I'm going to pour it in this receptacle. And I'm going to use water, not wine, not rice, not honey. These are possible items I could use to pour libations. Some things that you can sprinkle on the ground, you can pour on the ground. I pour libations today first and foremost in the glorious name of Chineke. Chi, the male energy, masculine energy of the Creator, and Eke, the feminine energy of the Creator. I pour libations and I say, Ise means and so it is in Igbo Nigerian language. I pour libations to the four winds, to east, west, north, and south. I say Ise. I pour libations in honor of the great ancestors, the great grandmothers, the great grandfathers. Ise. I pour libations and ask for their wisdom to continue to flow through me, be accessible through the power of my spirit. He said, I pour libations today in honor of all that is good in the universe, the sun, the moon, the wind, the oceans, everything that gives us life, everything that supports life on earth. I pour libations in their honor. I pour libations and call upon the Creator in all the names that we use to call upon the Creator. Chineke, Oludumare, Kamana, Jiami, Kakunda, Nemi, Mukosi, Uwizilele. God has a different name in different tongues. Call upon Chineke. We call upon you today. We ask for good health. We ask ask for high moral quality. We have asked for peace and love, which is within the personal ability of each and every one of us. We call upon the spirit of those individuals that have made it to the ripe old age of 80, because we realize that we reincarnate. We have 7 opportunities to get our lives right. So for those who have made it to the age of 80, we pour libations today and call upon their names. We pour libations in honor of those who are still on their journey, who have not made it to age 80. We wish them well wherever they are. We call upon the spirit of those yet unborn, and we ask that when they come into this earth, that they will inherit nothing but the goodness that we ourselves have put in front of them, that we have done to ensure that they live a fruitful and healthy life. We call upon the spirit of our personal ancestors, and I ask you this time to call upon your ancestors. Come on, call upon my mother who has become an ancestor, Musa, Ngozi Musa, Noha, Ngozi Musa, Onyoha. I call upon you today, your journey, may your journey be bright. You made it to the right old age of 91. We want you to be with us, to continue your journey. But your journey is now, you have elevated to ancestorhood. So we ask you to continue to watch over us, to protect us from all evil. Stay in front of us, behind us, beside us. Anything that we touch, may it turn into gold. Help us to see any dangers in front of us. Help us to see any dangers anywhere around us. I ask all of you to please call upon the names of your ancestors. Call them, because if you don't, that means that they didn't exist, and that means you certainly don't exist. So I call upon your ancestors. And we'll ask you to make noise for the ancestors. Make noise for the ancestors. Please make noise for the ancestors, because when you make noise for the ancestors, you acknowledge them, you let them know that you still have their names on your tongue. You acknowledge them, you let them know that they still matter. You acknowledge them by letting them know that you appreciate the fact that they live. Thank you, Chineke, for this wonderful opportunity that you've given us, for breath, for the ability to walk, for the ability to eat, for the ability to do all those things that sometimes we take for granted, but we shouldn't. And so I am going to end my libations with a famous libation song. Ogeke Chineke kama, chiri ya numaburu na oga hodi anya, chiri ya ekwedula kopi gidamba, chiri ya numoge lulu, oga biyakwa, chiri ya chukukigwe one chetagi, chiri ya odigimbe one chefugi, chiri ya neziani he banyeregi, anile ni metu Chineke nobi. Chineke's time is always the best. Sometimes it seems like your blessings are taking too long coming. Just be patient. Know that when the time is right, the Most High, the noble ancestors will come forward with what your needs are and bless you more than you can even ever imagine. They will bless you. They will bless you. You're already blessed. Know it, believe it, and act it. And so it is. I say, Ise. And finally, I ask you to call your names. Wherever you are, call your name. Because someday, you want to be an ancestor. You want to get to be the age of 80. So when you put your name out there in the universe will respond and will help you to achieve ancestorhood. You keep living. Take some water, I sprinkle on the floor, I sprinkle on myself, and I will take some of this water and I'll sprinkle all around me just to cool the temperature, to remove anything in my path that will do me any harm. And so it is. Takasie, I see you. I hope you see me. And so it is. And so it is. And so
Yes,
it
yes.
is. And there
Okay,
will you
Dibias.
be.
I see.
Imagine how you
I'm
did.
good. I went to get a coffee and I forgot my responsibilities to this.
That's all right.
What do you call it?
Yeah,
Podcast. So I ask for your forgiveness from you and the public. Akimi bro is online. They're wacky. Yes.
okay. You know, it's a new day. Thank you,
Yes.
Chineke, for this wonderful new day.
You
And
say,
each day that we are above ground is a good day. You
you
know,
say,
there's
oh,
a tendency to complain all the time, but we just need to remember that we are the blessed few. Blessed few.
yes.
Dibia Childozie will not be with us today. He'll be with us in spirit because he has an emergency in his village that he has to manage.
Yeah.
So today,
Well,
as we begin our discussion today, it is going to be a little painful, a little jarring and emotional for some of us. So please bear with us because it's a conversation that must be had. Let me just begin by reminding you, wherever you are, that we are like trees standing by the water. If you have taken the time to go and see a tree by the water, you notice it doesn't matter how that water is flowing, unless it's a tsunami, that tree is still remains standing because it has roots. Our roots go down so deep that strong winds cannot possibly blow us over, even though many try, even though many winds come and try to do just that. But see, if we don't stand on our foundation, we will become wobbly. We have been wobbly over the years, but it's time to trust our roots. It's time for us to stand tall. People try us in so many ways, try to shake us up. Unfortunately, we do become quite successful at letting them do that. They become successful. They shake us to the left, we move to the left. To the right, we move to the right. We continue to allow the small stream to become a tsunami and blow us away. We bend so easily these days. But to be clear, we do have deep roots. Some of our actions don't show that we do have deep roots. Some of our actions show that we are really weak, or we show the weak part of humanity, our humanity. Now, every human being that we come across, every human being out here has roots set by their ancestors. The thing is that many honor their roots. Why we falter? We listen to garbage that's spewed about us. And what we do, instead of standing tall and saying, no, that's not true about us, we try to say, okay, well, do you want me to be this way so that I will fit in? We need to stop fitting in. All those who want to make us worry and become anxious and deny our relevance will not succeed if we don't break. Thank you, Chief. If we don't break. As strong trees, may we continue to bear good fruit. May we continue to stand. See, if you stand tall, if the tree doesn't kill over, we will continue to bear good fruit. And our children will always have green leaves. Today, we want to share a video that's been going around. Now, I don't know how long it's been going around, but the only reason why we chose this topic is because our people are forgetting who they are and are buying to the insolence of uneducated and evil minds to the extent that they convince you to vote, even vote against your own good. If you look at what's going on in Nigeria right now, we voted en masse, but then some people were convinced, that the truth should not be our anchor. Lies and money instead. And here we are. Here we are where people have no food to eat. People are scrambling for every little thing. I remember during the war when there was no food to eat. But it's almost like that's what's happening again. There's no real war, but it's war on the poor. The rich are getting filthy rich, and you find that to be the case everywhere. The rich get filthy rich and the poor get poor. And the poor are kept in that position for a reason. And while you're poor and you're scrambling for food and just mere sustenance, they are pulling all kinds of things, saying all kinds of things, putting information in your mind that belittle you and bring down your self-esteem and keep you thinking poor, thinking that you're not enough. So I'm going to play this video right now, and you can see that there are more people out there. There are people out there who don't mean us any good. We must always be on the alert, my people. Truly. You must always be sharp in your mind. You always need to be prepared to respond accordingly. Turning the other cheek as you're told to simply means that you will be slapped twice and blinded in the process. This is what your children are hearing. People are telling them at school, at some of these places that we think they should be in. And we don't correct it when they come home. That is why you find a Yoruba or Hausa or Igbo children come home and they speak in English. They don't even understand it. I mean, you know, for me personally, I should have done better. We should do better. It's important that our children continue to be rooted, their language, their culture, everything. Otherwise, evil people like what you're going to see on this video, in this video rather, will convince them that they're not good enough. That they're not good enough. And after the video, we'll be back. And this video is about with Jared Taylor. Jared Taylor is an American prominent white supremacist who has determined that we Africans everywhere are inferior. He did not mince any words, as you can see in this video. Now, we can choose to discredit this and reject racists as leaders who will take the world back into the dark ages, or we can accept it, as many of us do. The choice is ours when all is said and done. So I'm going to ask you to share your thoughts, because I don't want you to just hear what we're saying about this matter. We want to hear what you think, and we will discuss your thoughts today. And in the whole scheme of things, it's important for us to remember it's all about us. So I'm going to play this video, and then we'll talk about it.
So you want to live in a white-only country?
Not necessarily white-only, but a country that is clearly based on a European model in which whites will basically remain the overwhelming majority in perpetuity.
Okay, how do you achieve that?
Well, that's an excellent question. Donald Trump has got some first good steps in mind. Mm-hmm. He wants to make sure no more illegal immigrants come into the country, and he wants to make sure that all illegal immigrants here go back. He wants to end birthright citizenship. He wants to put at least a temporary ban on Muslim immigration.
What happens with Asians? What happens with African Americans? What happens with Latinos?
What happens to my people?
You presented me with a very limited view of the United States.
You're saying the United States is a place anybody can come and turn it into anything you want, and the people who built this country and established its institutions, if they glimmer away, so what? You are promoting a process that will reduce my people to a minority. You want more power for Latinos. That comes at the expense of my people's power.
We're 17% of the population,
right,
and we only have 3 senators. So therefore, we don't have the political representation that we deserve.
And you want more and more and more?
Of course, because we only have 3 senators.
How much political?
At this point, 14 senators.
And 50 years from now, how many would you like?
Let's talk about 50 years from now. In 2044,
yes,
white non-Hispanics will become a minority. Yes. Is that what you're afraid of?
Mr. Ramos, it's fantastic for you, for my people to lose power and become a minority. That's fantastic for you. How does it feel for
because
me?
Because it is our country, Mr.
Our
Taylor.
country, our
It is our country. Don't you think we both have the same rights in this country?
I think that despite this nonsense in the Declaration about anybody being anyone,
Excuse me,
white people,
you don't think we are all created equal?
No. What you want to do is change this country into an entire nation in which white people will become refugees in their own land
so
if your vision comes through.
You don't want to live alongside Mexicans?
Now, why is it wrong for me not to want my neighborhood to change? If my neighborhood is European, if my neighborhood, they don't keep chickens in the backyard that crow at 3 in the morning.
What are you talking about? That's a complete stereotype. That's a complete stereotype.
Yes, and stereotypes are all true.
It's a racist stereotype, what you're saying.
Oh, racist. Give me a break.
What are you going to do with the thousands of Muslims?
We certainly
American citizens who are serving in the military.
I'm sure that we just couldn't possibly survive with all those Muslim Navy Rangers. Yes, I'm sure that's true.
That is not right.
No, I'm talking
You
about
cannot make
Muslim.
fun of people who are saving our lives.
They want special holidays and special food in
So if
school
you don't like their
restaurants,
religion, you don't have to join them. That's fine.
Well, no, they are. Wait,
but
I'm
also,
not-
but you can't discriminate against them simply because you.
Of course, anyone should have the right to discriminate against anyone he wishes. And the point is,
But not by the law, Mr. Taylor. You can't do that.
I think the law is absolutely incorrect.
Do you feel that whites are superior, are more intelligent than blacks?
I think, on average, whites are more intelligent than blacks, and North Asians are more intelligent than whites.
How can you say that?
How can you think otherwise?
Mr. Taylor,
What evidence would you have to think that a pygmy is, on average, is just as intelligent as a Dane? Why would you think that? The entire record of history is completely consistent with the assumption that black Africans are less intelligent on average than Asians or Caucasians.
That's absurd. That's repugnant and absurd.
Repugnant to you?
Yes, of course.
Why would you even entertain the possibility that on average a pygmy is as intelligent as a Japanese?
The comparison that you are trying to make, it is simply impossible because of historical circumstances, because economic conditions, because of the
More
movement.
excuses. We have to be willing to say to all those who are non-European, we wish you well, but this territory is for us. And sorry, we have the right to be us, and only we can be us.
So you want me to leave?
Under certain circumstances, yes, we would ask you to go. Unless whites are prepared to exclude people, then they will be shoved aside. That is the fate which I will fight until my last breath.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Not
That's
even,
all I can say.
Not even shocked either.
Whoa. Yudi, this is the kind of thing that, at some point, you sing it like a song. The world is a Serengeti, survival of the fittest. You always have to ask yourself, where do I fit in? Who am I? In the whole scheme of things, people are fighting for their survival, some in a very negative way, as you can see. But nonetheless, if you listen to him, he's talking about the survival of his people. But then he's making generalizations that are not real, that are not true. I don't know what you heard, but one part that I heard that was quite stunning to me, aside from all the nonsense he was spewing, the fact that he sat there and he said to this man, are you suggesting that the pygmies are as smart?
That got me too. I mean, I just totally lost it.
So have you been feeding the pygmies? What have you done for the pygmies to determine that you're superior? If you were put where the pygmies live on your own without their support, how well would you survive? How do you apply your intelligence in an environment that you don't know anything about? You see, here's another stupid thing about when people talk like that. It's important to call this out. Humanity and civilization began in Africa. We all came from one mother, right? So if you speak ill of Africans because they are Africans, you're talking about yourself because you came from there. You just don't know it because they refuse to teach you that in your history. The history they teach you is that you somehow fell from the skies and fell into America or wherever it is you came from. Humanity progressed from one area and just moved throughout the world. So the genes of the Africans are in you. Many of them do these tests and they find that they have some African in them and they freak out. Why are you surprised? We all came from the same place. But the important thing is, okay, so you become different from us. All right, go ahead, celebrate who you are. But then you now have to tell us that because you're now a different person, then we are somehow inferior. The question I always want to ask is, if, let me just use America, for instance. If America, the Europeans who landed here from Europe, If they're so superior, what was the purpose of going to Africa and getting these so-called inferior people? Huh? Why did you need them? If you had it all, if you've been blessed with everything, then you had no need to go there to take them. You took my people from the continent because you needed the skills that they have. You needed the abilities that they have that you didn't have. Because you don't want to see it that way. All you want to see is, oh, they were slaves. They were not slaves. You enslaved them at the point of a gun. And you continue to feed this nonsense, even to the point that you're making sure that leaders now think like that. The leaders that we want to put think like that. And let's make no mistake about it. Such leaders are not just here in America. Such leaders are all over the world. Such leaders are even African people who don't love themselves, who don't believe in themselves, who use their own people, who have been convinced. That's what I'm saying. We allow ourselves to be convinced that we're less than, so that when they give you money, they've convinced you that your people are not worth anything. So you take that money and undermine the well-being of your people. African people need to wake up. If you think that what's going on in Gaza may not happen to you, you better think again. You better think again. When people sleep, these things happen to them. When people sleep, these things happen to them. I want to bring in Nnamdi. Welcome, Nnamdi. Nnamdi is going to join us in this conversation because this is a heavy one.
You couldn't stay away.
Huh?
Nnamdi couldn't stay away. He said, I'm coming. I got stuff on my mind and I have the platform to let loose and get it out of my mind. I can't take this anymore. Okay, Madam Carl.
So I'm gonna ask you to, Nnamdi, welcome. Yudi, what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts?
I don't really pay too much attention to people like that, even though I should, because their message actually resonates with Africans. Okay, I'm not concerned about his message resonating within his own constituency or people that think like him, because they already think like him. They already have this mindset that they're inferior. So I really don't spend a lot of time with fools like that. I'm more concerned about people of African ancestry that internalize such blasphemy and actually believe it. But there's just something that I just want to point out, that I don't think people spend a lot of time on this, in terms of the level of inferiority complex that, it's rampant in African communities all over the world. Jamaican, African-American, blah, 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 Africans in the motherland, British, doesn't matter. Wherever you come from, if you're Black, you're African. Regardless of how old your history is, it could be the Olmecs, it could be, Africans that were here in the Americas, even way before, 1,000 years before Columbus. We have that. It is documented. We know that Africans were great sailors because we sailed all over the world. We know that already. What really gets me, and to me, one of the main reasons that we have this complex in our community, the Stockholm syndrome and all that kind of stuff, to me, it's really about the beginning. How do you see yourself as being part of the genesis of humanity? Like in the Bible or in Judaism, you talk about Adam and Eve, and then through Christianism, it was spread all over the world to those colonized and enslaved people. And through the generations, your knowledge of self was totally wiped out. I bring it up because when I look at major philosophies in the world, whether it's Buddhism, the Norse culture, mythologies, the Greek mythologies, which is, tantamount to the pagan myth, you have to ask yourself, how do you see yourself in terms of your beginning? Because for the African who has been colonized and enslaved, he sees himself as a descendant of Adam and Eve. But were Adam and Eve really your African ancestors? Were they part of your beginnings that gives you the grounding, the roots that you need to put deep into the ground to stand up strong and straight and grow? In, let's say, in Greek mythology, right? Prometheus is the first man, and Pandora is the first woman. So in Greek mythology, they have a concept of the first man and the first woman, and they see themselves that way, rooted in something that is original, its content is primordial to their history. Now you talk about in Buddhism, for example, Shatarupa, right? Created the first man, Brahma. And then Brahma married Manu. Manu is the first man, excuse me. They have a sense of beginning. If you look at, what do you call it, the Norse culture, I think it's Aska and Embia are the first man. Aska is the first man, Embia is the first woman. In Chiism, you have Ifenta and Adam, which is primordial African mythology of who the first man and who the first woman were. This is the kind of thing, and you know, Africa, we have a whole lot of indigenous religions in Africa, but in the end, because we don't speak the same language, the premise is still the same. The idea that there's a first cause, the idea that there's a first man, there's a first woman. This is what is missing in the African psyche that used to be there until the slave trade, until Islam came and enslaved 40 million Africans, until the Mansa Musas and the Usman Dan Fodios and the Sekou Tourés Islamized all of West Africa and a swap of sub-Saharan Africa to give you this sense that you are not rooted in anything that is primordial to you, that is part of your primordial core. So you now ascribe who you are to something that is totally foreign. And it is this mentality that makes us very gullible to everything, even when there's information, the idea or the over the centuries being told that there is nothing about you that is primordial to you, that your genesis started somewhere else. Abraham, the father of humanity. The Jewish history is 7,000 years old, and we both know that Adam and Eve is only 7,000 years old, and we know that there are civilizations in this world, not just in Africa, that are older than Judaism. So once you start justifying your worth by standards that are not of your own, you fail in promoting anything cultural about yourself. You will fail in politics because you've adopted a political system that is not part of your spiritual culture or your primordial core. You failed in your judicial system. You failed to tamper corruption in government and in business. You failed to emphasize the idea that if the community moves forward, you move right along with it. A rising tide lifts all boats. There is something within us that it's like we don't have this feeling that we were part of anything in human history, that everything that we know was given to us. The gentleman that talked about the pygmies, he only, how do you say, inflamed the idea that because pygmies are short, because they walk around in the desert in their lion claw, that they're inferior because they have bows and arrows, and you're inferior because you have perfected violence against your fellow human beings. That's your superiority complex, is that you have perfected the art of violence, how to take, how to kill, how to supplant and remove something from a community and supplant it with yours, how to conquer. You are superior because you have no spirituality. Religion is lost in you. in its etymology. That doesn't make you superior. That pygmy running around in the desert can find water. But you, as a European, if you were put in the desert, you will never be able to find water. You will die. What does a pygmy do? Pygmy studies the how do you say, the characteristics and lifestyles of the baboon, and with cunning is able to get the baboon to help him find drinking water. What does he do? What he does is he knows that baboons love salt, so he spreads salt all over the place. And when the baboon comes and sees the salt, the baboon starts eating the salt. And once the baboon gets through eating that salt, the baboon gets real thirsty and then goes off to go and find water to drink. And the pygmy follows the baboon.
That's right.
To the water, where there's water or the stream or whatever, and now drinks to his or her heart content. I challenge the man in the video to be left in the Sahara Desert or in the Kalahari Desert. Let him go find water. He will never be able to do it. So how do you measure intelligence? What exactly is intelligence? The guy running around in his loincloth in the hot desert without clothing is running around in the hot desert without clothing because it's hot. If you wear clothing,
it's hot. Okay,
you will lose water. You will die. If you put that same guy in Europe, if he adapted to a European environment, he would have found clothing to put on because Europe is cold.
That's right.
But instead of looking at the actual intelligence of a people, you find a reason to elevate yourself above them because that is part of your spiritual makeup. Violence. And I feel like you had mentioned earlier, is the European actually has an inferior complex and therefore feels a need to get on somebody else and act as if somebody is inferior to them. For us as African people, I really believe that our educational system has failed us in all areas of human endeavor. You and I were talking about this morning, when you look at Black platforms run by Africans or African Americans, most of the people, particularly here in the United States, most of the people that you see on these platforms are basketball players, football players, rappers, musicians, people that intellectually contribute nothing to the upliftment of people of African ancestry. I'm yet to see somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson on any Black platform talking. He's always talking to people like Joe Rogan. Any other white platform will invite him to come and share his knowledge. I don't see him on any Black platform. I don't see any educators of prominence or scientists of prominence, engineers, architects, medical doctors. I don't see any of these people on any African or African-American platforms. We promote those things that continue to give us a negative reputation in the eyes of people that don't understand our contributions to civilized behavior. Even the so-called HBCUs do not promote that either. You don't see it. You're all in church every Sunday, rallying around the same doctrine that justified their enslavement in the first place. I don't blame the gentleman on the video. I blame us for not creating an environment where our greatness, our history is fostered and talked about, so that maybe it will give us a sense of relevance and perhaps things will change. Because just to close what I'm saying, before that gentleman spoke anything, back in the 16th century, racism was not a relevant topic in the world over. People conquered one another and did all kinds of stuff for economic reasons and to gain power, not because of your race. Racism started in the 17th century, and in the United States, it was the governor of, I think it was governor of, I don't know if it's Virginia, some guy named William Wallace. He's the guy that started racism over here because the white population was getting on the case of those rich white Americans, and they needed to convince them that the Black people in America is the reason why they are poor. and elevated them to feel like the worst white person is more superior than the smartest black person. That's when racism started in the 17th century. It's not primordial. It's not something that happened 1,000 years ago.
Yeah. Yes. We're going to come back to you. Thank you so much. That's a point that I want to come back and have a conversation. Chief Ikenna, welcome. He has somewhere to be, so he can be with us just very briefly. So he has some thoughts, and then I'll go to you, Nnamdi, then I'll go back to you. Okay, go on.
Yes, good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Okay. I wanted to bring a point that that Chief Owa brought up earlier regarding how people think that they fall out of the sky and that they're better than you are. I have a chance to work with a lot of people from different cultures. And I have a young Indian guy who's darker than I am. And, you know, Indians always tend to think that they are better than Black people or people of darker complexion. It's in their culture as a result of the caste system. Well, when I looked at him and I began to talk to him, I kind of jokingly asked him, was he aware of his African ancestry? And he kind of looked at me and like shook his head like, no, that's not true. So as I began to look at, let me move. As I began to look at the Dravidians and ask the question, what is the African heritage in India? What I found in the information was the fact that Africans had populated the southern area of India. And as a matter of fact, over the history, they were a very peaceful people. As a result of invasions by the Aryans, they coalesced further into the southern part of India. These individuals were warlike and were on horses. And we know that throughout history, that every time another group comes in contact with another group in terms of conquest, if that other group comes in with a technology or a usage of whatever they're using in warfare that the other group doesn't have, then that other group is at a disadvantage. And so at that time, the Africans were not used to using horses in warfare in terms of having cavalry. We see that same thing here that happened in the United States during the in the early West, where the Indians had to confront the Europeans in terms of land conquest, because the Europeans here had horse soldiers. The Indians were not used to using horses in warfare, but they learned very early. So you have that same kind of relationship throughout history. If some culture is using metal on their arrow tips and another culture is only just whittling down and just cutting arrow tips in their arrows, that other culture who's using metal has an advantage. So in the process of history, there was warfare between the Aryans and the Africans tried to hold out for a long time. But eventually, those Africans that were in the southern part of India were conquered. And as a result of that, the Aryans started intermarrying with the African women. As a result of that, you had different skin colors started to accumulate. The Dravidians were selected because of their darker skin color to be at the bottom of the social caste, while those with lighter skin colors, because of the mixture, chose to become placed at the pinnacle of the society. So you know, I guess what we should do in a situation like this is we need to understand where we are and how we function in history. You have somebody who has a skin, he's jet black. He's darker than you are, but he doesn't want to admit that he has any African or any African roots in his genome. And so you ask, well, where did that stuff, did it just fall out of the sky? Where did it come from? Do you know who you really are and where you come from? And we, as African people, need to be asking these people when we see them, do you know where you came from? And for instance, look at Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley wants us to come here and talk about, well, we don't have any discrimination here in the United States, but she's Indian. And African Americans should be asking her a question about, well, what are you going to do for African Americans? Because, you come from us. That would really be something, wouldn't it? That would really shake that up. So I just overheard this conversation this morning, and I just wanted to bring that because even a lot of us don't understand how far we go back into the world civilizations and the creation of world civilizations and what we have added to other cultures and where other cultures even come from. And they have the audacity to try to make like they are better than you are as an person of African descent. So, as Aristotle said, or I may be mistaken, you can correct me, man, know thyself. African man, woman, know yourself as you travel through this journey. That's all I have to add.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful. Good. And I don't know if you're familiar with the great chain of being, that they created, the great chain of being, where they started from the lowest animals all the way to God, and so the white man is closest to angel, and then the angel to God, and then the rest of us are with the animals, right? So that means that the black people are good enough for enslavement because they're on the lower level of the great chain of being. Remember, they created that. That was in the 18th century, and that continued for a while. So quite frankly, that's when the race issue became an issue, so that you can use that to designate those that you can maltreat, and then those on this great chain of being are the ones that are superior, and so everybody else can be treated as so it's important for us to know. And quite frankly, these are some of the things they don't even teach our children. So our children really are thinking that this is all about slavery. So it's not just about slavery. It's about their concept of creation, their concept of who's more relevant in society than the other. And that's how you are in there. That's why they enslaved you in the first place, because they thought that you belonged, the lower level of being. And so they can take advantage of you. They can use you for their own good, but you don't have to stay there. That's why, what's his name says, how can I think of his name now? He says, try falling on your back, because if you can look up, you can get back up. We've been on our back. It's time to look up and get up. We don't have to buy into no human being has any better rights than you do. We all have the same rights as anyone else does. So we can't have people defining us. It's time for us to define ourselves. And I want to hear what Namdi has to say. Welcome, Namdi.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having me on. Number one, thank you for inviting me. Pardon the hoodie and everything else. It's cold, but I thought me hopping on here and listening would provide some warmth to the people, because this is definitely a heated topic and one that needs to be discussed on a regular basis. To Uncle Yudi, I do have to say that there have been a couple podcasts that black-owned podcasts or black-hosted podcasts, like Star Talk, but I think that Neil deGrasse Tyson has been on, and other intellectuals have been on. And then also, I think Charlemagne the God had a podcast with Neil deGrasse Tyson. So there are a couple podcasts where we do have some individuals that host intellectuals, but you are right about one thing: there's not enough. And the reason why I bring that up and bringing that point is we don't have enough individuals that look like us that will support and even boast intellectuals to the point where we can be competitive on an intellectual level visually. We have tons of intelligent individuals that look like us because let's be honest about it. This nation wouldn't be where it is right now if it wasn't for melanated intellectuals, point blank, period. So the idea of I'm sorry, his level of intelligence wasn't high enough for me to retain his name, so I'm not going to worry about it. I just recognize that he was a less melanated being that started saying stuff. So for individuals, and I will say this, I appreciate his candor. I appreciate his honesty, at least in his mind, because there was definitely a lot mentioned. He did mention something about an assumption, or he said history has showed that the assumption of intelligence. Now, here's the interesting thing. There's a difference between truth and assumption. I can assume that a car is going to hit me depending on how fast it's going, but the truth is there's 4 different lanes on the freeway, and depending on what lane I'm in depends on how fast this vehicle is going and also if it is projected to hit me. That's an assumption, right? Assuming that something is going to hit me is different than the truth. Individuals that think in this manner are holding on. They are clasping to something that has been taught to them through individuals struggling for survival, right? No one is ever taught to have that level of ignorance, or should I say, no one is birthed with that level of ignorance and accepting that type of thought process. It has to be taught. Generational ignorance is passed on, just like assumption and also one's idea of superiority to another. That is generationally passed on. It has to be taught. I couldn't get on and utilize this phone if I didn't know what type of phone it was and understand that there's a difference between me using an Android and an Apple. They're two. It's the same phone, or it's a phone in general, but there's 2 different functionalities. There's 2 different versions of the operating system. But I have to be taught how to use it. If I know how to use a phone, I know that I can pick it up, I can dial some numbers, and I'll be able to connect to somebody. But if I don't know all of the ins and outs of the different types of phones, then there's going to be different levels of functionality that I have to understand. What this individual doesn't get is he's operating off of a place of limited intelligence in general. There's a Hindu yogi that said this, and I thought that this applies so much to this conversation. He said, and you brought up Uncle Yudi, you brought up the idea of intelligence, and you made an excellent point when you talked about the pygmy following the monkey. Excellent point, because I saw the same thing. But the yogi said, what is intelligence? Intelligence is not making something simple more difficult. Intelligence is making something difficult more simple. As you mentioned,
Yes.
An individual watching the monkey follow putting some salt, having the monkey eat the salt. The monkey gets dehydrated and gets thirsty, goes to get some water, following the monkey to see where the water is, because he's not necessarily he doesn't necessarily know where it is, so he applies the knowledge of number one, science, and then nature. That's intelligence. If I have to say, well, they say that there's water around here. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get 5 people. They're going to scope out the place. Then I want them to go get those machines, and we're going to dig a trench, and we're going to follow it all the way down. It should take us about 15 to 20 miles. We're going to go, and we're going to scope in the 15, 20-mile radius of where this water may be. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get a hydraulic pump. We're going to put the hydraulic pump into the ground. We're going to make sure that it pumps out the sand and the dirt, so it creates enough of a trench so we can find some water to come out of this area where the trench where we dig the trench. So there's going to be a hole in this area. Hold on, Jim, give me a second. I got this. So we're going to dig a hole. We're going to put this thing in here, this contraption. What's the contraption called? Yes, a nagulator. We're going to put the nagulator in this part of the ground. The ground is we're going to pump this button. We're going to hit this button. The button is going to pump remaining dirt and salt out of the ground. It's going to come in, and we might hit some water because that's where they said it might be. There's going to be pygmies looking at these individuals like, what is wrong with y'all? Follow the monkey. No, that's not intelligent enough. We went to school for this.
Yeah.
I didn't. And I know I'm going to be able to follow this monkey and quench my thirst.
That is great.
It's going to take y'all 15 days to find this water, but you call yourself intelligent because you went to school for it. Funny thing is, we're the ones that gave you the schools in the first place. Universities, we had the first ones. So the idea of considering other individuals that don't look of a lighter complexion to be less intelligent because these individuals needed to create a platform or create a pyramid or create some type of diagram to place themselves at the highest level in order to take from the people that have the knowledge and then also give them every resource they need in order to put themselves on a pedestal. That's not intelligence. But here's the other thing. Just like you guys have all stated, we have limited ourselves as far as when it comes down to spiritual, financial, every type of system you can think of. We have limited ourselves as far as intelligence is concerned, or our ability to achieve at a certain level, because we are following someone else's story, someone else's image, and someone else's platforms. If we always utilize this as an example when we talk about intelligence, especially compared from one ethnic group to another. When the Europeans bombed Japan, that had to be that was almost 80 years ago, right? 80, actually, no, that was almost 100 years. That was about 100 years ago, or if not a little bit more. I'd say about between 80, I'd say 80 years. My thing is, in that time frame when they bombed them, do you think Japan forgot?
78 years ago.
78 years ago. Do you think that Japan forgot that the United States bombed them? Do you think that they would be stupid enough to forget that Japan bombed them? They do business with the United States.
Nope.
They do trade. They have businesses and industries of operation with the United States. At the same time, it would be unbelievably stupid for them to ever retract the thought process that the United States saw them as an enemy before they saw them as an ally. They are ready at any time. If the United States was to switch up and think that their intelligence was at such a higher level than Japan's, they're at the ready to switch up and say,
yes,
you might want to rethink that.
Yep.
But the African is so hell-bent on appeasing the image of the European that they will choose to ignore, not all, but those that have the ability to create the institutions and this and stable infrastructures that are upheld, developed, built, and maintained by Africans for Africans first, not ignoring everyone else, but for Africans first, because the Japanese do it, the Chinese do it, the Middle Easterns do it. Every other ethnic group does this. But for some reason, we are one of the very few, if not the only, that is hell-bent on upholding an image of appeasing the European concept of intelligence and also wealth and this and that. We have to have this. We have to have that. To do what? To stay enslaved mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially. We will never come under the grips of the European mindset unless we recognize our intelligence first in every aspect. So when individuals like this dude talk, all he's doing is showcasing, number one, his lack of intelligence, but then also those individuals that support that way of thinking that look like us. All we're doing is just helping him prove a point. It's our responsibility, just like it's white people's responsibility to hold him accountable and say, you messing up, big dog. It's our responsibility to say, okay, we need to not just prove this wrong, but we need to actually start creating things for ourselves that are in the image of us, bound with us. So when we're at that point of being able to work with other individuals, we're working with other individuals outside of our communities, not trying to appease individuals outside of our community. Because we keep looking at those individuals on a higher scale, spiritually, economically, educationally, all that. We keep looking at these individuals and we keep proving them wrong because we're supplying them with everything that they need in order to develop themselves in one way, shape, or another, but we don't see it within ourselves. It's interesting. It's just really interesting. Until we start saying, okay, we're at this level. Spiritually, we're at this level. We have something that we look up to in our image. We have languages that can be comparable to those that individuals will consider to be sexy or appealing or whatever they want to call it. We can write our own books on our own language. How is it that I'm just now seeing one individual, one Nigerian individual that is now starting to say, okay, we can create. He has created I believe it was a science book written in all Igbo. He's one of the very few, but I can go to Japan and you have doctorate program books, libraries that are written in all Japanese. You can go to France, books written in France. You can go to Germany, science books from elementary to doctorate programs written in their language. And this guy is one of the very few, Africans to say, we have one. And it's the first time he's writing it in his language. On an educational scale, on a doctorate scale, on one of those scales where it can be measured. That's where intelligence lies, where we take what we have and we put it into places, into things where we can develop ourselves and develop our platforms and our infrastructure on the manner that everyone else has done. If they're taking everything else from you, why are you not giving to yourself? That's intelligence. So that's it. That's all I got.
Thank you, Nnamdi. That you said a lot. And you know, the other thing, if you listen to, because I was really listening intently to what he's showing, and let's be clear, this is not just what one man is saying. There are thousands and millions. Well, there are millions of such people. Okay, when he's talking about everything has to be from a Eurocentric perspective in this country. Now you're going to ask yourself, what is it? What's the Eurocentric perspective? I think Dibias did say that. Is it hatred? That's Eurocentric. The bulk of it is. Is it greed? Is that European? Is it murder, killings, mass murders? Is that Eurocentric? Tell me what you mean by Eurocentrism. What is it? I mean, we're watching. When in Haiti, when you had the Haiti revolution, revolt against the slave dealers, slave masters, they are slavers. That put a lot of fear in the white world. And that's why they had to do whatever they had to do that social structure, so that people will understand these people are no good. This is their nature, and because they are on this low level, you can't associate with them. You can't be like them. They're not like us. See what they did. They are angry. They fight. They do. And as long as you keep putting that in society for people to see and not show what role you played. See, when they talk about the revolution, when the people revolt against injustice, then you target them as inferior, as angry, as this, as that. But you never put yourself in the position, in the picture, so people will see why these people are acting the way they are. It's survival. When people need to survive, if you put your foot on somebody's neck long enough, they're going to push it off. But when they push it off, you say they're the ones who are bad, not you with the foot on their neck. And then you make it a social thing. Remember, you all remember when you had commercials, you never saw a black face. You didn't have black people in commercials. Okay. Now, when you start asking, why are there no black people in commercials? Well, the answer is they don't fit the European
mold.
What is it? Description of beauty. They don't fit that. Here again, they're still putting you down, making you feel inferior, right? And raising themselves up. So you have to look white. And that's why people start to bleach their skin, have long hair. You see, so when you convince people over and over and over through media, through print, through everything, even in the classroom, it begins to work. It begins to rub off. People start believing it. Then you say you're intelligent, like Yudi said. You're intelligent because you're cruel, because you can do all these awful things. And those who don't do those things, they are the ones who are inferior. I took some African Americans, I told you guys this before. I took them home and we went to the river Okwan.
Yeah.
When we were there, the children started to run and told us to run too. So we were wondering, what are they running? They say it's going to rain, but it was sunny. So some of us were saying, oh, these village kids and all. And they were saying, but we couldn't see it. They said, you guys run, the rain. We didn't want to run because after all, we're educated. We can see the sun. It's sunny. It's not going to rain. Where did they get that? Oh, how primitive of them. But they are the ones who are intelligent. And do you know, just like you used the monkey to demonstrate how people, how people think, how the intelligence of the pygmies. The children could see the dragonflies with their wings lowered. Usually the dragonfly has its wings up. And when the rain is coming, the dragonfly senses rain is coming and lowers it so that the rain doesn't damage its wings. So when these kids see it, having lived there all these many years, living with nature and understanding nature, they knew through those dragonflies, it was about to rain. But we, with the book sense, we thought they were ridiculous. Well, did we get drenched? Yes, we did. Out of nowhere, it started raining. And we are running helter-skelter. And they are laughing at us. We told you. How could they know? And an elder told us they know because the dragonflies had their wings down. You know, simple things that people use in their communities, in their societies to interact with each other and nature and what have you. You call that primitive. But here I live in a country where people are shot every day. People are killed for no reason. People are killed for eating Skittles and drinking pop. You can have your phone and get shot because it looks like a gun. The policeman who has the gun is scared of you because you have a phone. You can be killed for anything. Is that civilization? Is that intelligence? Where did they get that from? Because we allowed them to think that way. We don't argue it. It's time for us to start arguing it. If videos like this are spreading, don't just poo-poo it. Don't just say, you know how to. No, You argue, you let them know you know different. Because it's important for our people to know that we cannot continue to allow this until, you know what scares me, Yudi and Namdi? Let me tell you what scares me. What scares me is that ethnic cleansing is an easy thing to do. It's an easy thing to do. Look at what's going on with Ukraine. That's ethnic cleansing. Look at what's going on in the Gaza. Ethnic cleansing. Look at what happened in Congo. Ethnic. Don't think ethnic cleansing is a past thing. If they believe you're inferior and you're in that structure that they've created for you and you accept that, you are going to be exterminated. You better set your own structure, like Namdi said. Our spirituality, that's where our structure is. We see all human beings as equal. We don't see us as superior to anyone, but we see ourselves as having the right to exist and having information that other people can learn from. We're not here saying, oh, a white man is inferior to us, Indian is inferior. I don't have time for that. I don't care where your level of intelligence is. What's important to me is, how is that helping you to interact with humanity? And if you cannot interact with humanity, then you're not intelligent, just like Ahanke said. Redefine civilization. Civilized behavior should not be just man's ability to have economic opulence, technological know-how, money, all of that. No, it has to start with your ability to live with your fellow human being peacefully, without fighting. We are in a so-called civilized nation, and people will tell you, how to get out, go back to your country, go back to Africa. Hey, I'm living in the jungle right here. It's a jungle right here when you're scared to go to the movies. You know how much it takes out of me to go see a movie? And then when you get to the movie, you're trying to figure out that if they're giving you a seat, you want a seat closer to the door, so you know when to book it when it's time to get out of there. That's terrible, but that's a civilized nation. You go to McDonald's or any of these eating places at the mall and you are scared. I'm not kidding you. That's my reality. I don't remember the last time I went to the mall. I cannot tell you the last time I went to the mall because of the shootings in the mall in a civilized nation. Is that the Eurocentric foundation he's talking about? I'm sitting at the park and I'm looking around to see who's got a gun. Is that the civilized community he's talking about? What is he talking about? You have to lecture yourself. Stop lecturing us. We see you. Afromge, I see you. I see you every day. I see you in the newspaper. I hear what you say. I see your intolerance towards your fellow human beings. That is not intelligence. It would take, the only way that I can hurt another human being is if my life depended on it. But you so-called civilized people, intelligent people, you will kill just because somebody showed up at your doggone door. They don't even have to say anything. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the young man who had just graduated from college. He and his I think it was he and his girlfriend or something. They were in a car accident. He was injured. He crawled out of his car. This was in Florida. Crawled out of his car to go to somebody's house to ask for help. The person saw this black man loaded with blood on him, called the police. As soon as the police came, and he's trying to explain it, they shot him dead. He could have, He should have just died in the car accident. They didn't even want to hear what the man was. Oh, he was black, period. And he had blood on him. Oh, he's got to be bad. And as the police, stop right there. And the man is trying to talk, and boom, he's dead. These are civilized people. That's your definition of civilization? Intelligence? When you sit here every day, how many times have you seen all these mass killings by black folks? Yes, I'm not saying that we're not out here killing each other. Of course we're doing that. But how many mass shootings have you seen? How many black folks have gone to the grocery store to kill? Not for anything, just to kill, because I got it going. You leave your house to go grocery shopping and you don't come back. Your children go to school, they don't come back. This is a civilized nation? They need to start lecturing themselves. Redefine your concept of intelligence, because what you're saying shows that you lack it. Because where intelligent people congregate, people don't live in fear. Here we live in fear each and every single day. Every activity that we do, we are fearful. So it's so important that that black folks start talking about these things. Stop accepting it. Stop poo-pooing it, because what they're putting out on video, they're thinking behind the closed doors, and they may enact into reality if we're quiet about it. Yudi.
You just said a mouthful. It reminds me of what I had said. You cannot hold the people at gunpoint that don't want to be held, regardless of the situation. You know, there has to be a consensus amongst people of African ancestry that we need to do better. And like I had mentioned earlier on, and Nnamdi had brought it to my attention, that people like Neil deGrasse Tyson have showed up on, certain programs. I'm talking about dedicated programs that deal with our contribution to civilized behavior in all area or manner of human endeavor. There are so many podcasts that talk about African history and all that stuff, but it's almost closeted. It's not in the mainstream. It is not, you don't see it where, we'll go on the internet because we want to go watch this show, but we were going to watch Club Shay Shay, we will watch TNT or whatever with Charles Barkley and everybody else. But to have a show, apart from Neil deGrasse Tyson's own podcast that he has, but just be able to turn on the internet, and instead of listening to all these gossips and all that kind of stuff, listen to intelligent black people in economics, in finance, in science, from primary school to the collegiate level, people working at Ford Motors, that engineers manufacturing cars. Let's see a whole lot more of that as much as we see football in our African-American platforms, because you're not going to see it on the Indian platform, Chinese platforms, or platforms for white folks. You just ain't going to see that. But if we, permeate the marketplace, and when I say marketplace, I'm talking about media, our media, the ones that we control, the Tyler Perrys. I'm yet to see a Tyler Perry, as great as they are with all their money, and Oprah Winfrey, get up and make a movie about some African king or queen or warriors or scientists or something. You make it. Don't tell me about making a movie about some butler in the White House that Oprah Winfrey did. Who cares about color purple? I really don't. Let's just get real. What am I getting from that? There's some good acting. Shaka Zulu was made by a white movie company. The Dahiman Female Army, white movie company. Marvel made Black Panther. All black folks all over the world were beating our chest. Oh, they got us in their movie, in a character that they created. We didn't create Black Panther. Marvel created it. And they made billions of dollars from our own economic ignorance. How come we can't make some movie like that? The remake of Shaka Zulu is waiting. Do you think Tyler Perry, Oprah Winfrey can go in there and say, we're going to remake this thing and actually have theaters that they could show it to? Or cut a deal with Netflix or Prime, because people don't go to the movies that much anymore. Can we do those kinds of things to promote things that are African in media? Because obviously media and the miseducation of Africans in the school is our own Achilles heel. Whose information do we, where do we get our information? And what information are they sharing with us? Are they telling us Columbus discovered America when there were Africans here already? Not only that, there were here, people here already, excuse me, before Columbus came. And Columbus himself never came here. He never came on the United States or the contiguous states in the in America. He never came here. He didn't discover anything. There were people here already. Mungo Park did not discover the Niger River. There were people living there already. The European discovered nothing because everywhere they went, there were people there already. Who is telling the story this way? We've been very consistent on this podcast, on this show, to illuminate the world about the contributions that people of African ancestry have made to civilized behavior. And we try to offer solutions for cultural and economic revitalization of the African. And the first thing is cultural consistency. We don't have that. What is it about the African community all over the world that is consistent? Is it language? Is it religion? Is it a cultural calendar? The only thing that we have consistent with each other is our skin color, but our mentality is divergent. The Chinese all over the world celebrate the Chinese New Year, no matter where they are. At least they're unified under a common cultural focus. How do we do that with Black folks? We've never talked about the origin of humanity and looked at it from the African context. We know that in Chiism because we're Chiist, and we were taught that. But generally speaking, how do we see ourselves in this world? How do we fit in? I will argue that the first process in fitting in and understanding your role in this world as a community is to trace your spiritual beginnings. I'm not talking about science. I'm not talking about archaeology, dug up history. I'm not talking about that. Because archaeology doesn't control the mind. Spirituality does. Religion does. Our mind is controlled right now by religion. Adam and Eve, Jewish human ancestors. We've accepted that as our own ancestors. The Hindus don't. They don't accept that. They may not think that they have African origins. Well, that's too bad, because Africans been there over 5,000 years in India, in southern India. You can't shoo them away. There's an island right by the coast of India. It's a few miles off the coast, just a few miles, maybe 20 miles off the coast of India, populated by Africans for over 5,000 years. And right now, you can't go over there, because if you go over there, you might end up getting killed. The Indian government leaves them alone. But they've been there longer than the so-called Indians with the straight hair have been over there. We're all over the world, the Olmecs of North Africa and North America. The caves in the Grand Canyon that was discovered by, what was the guy's name? G.E. Kincaid. In the Grand Canyon right here, found a tomb with Egyptian hieroglyphics all over the wall and tombs. They've been here a long, long time. I redefine civilization in the United Nations as the ability to defend the right of your fellow human being to exist. That's civilized behavior. And so for those people that came in here with the guns and enslaved us as Africans, put us through all manner of inhumane treatment, perpetuated all levels of violence from King Leopold to the Queen of Spain, to Cortez in South America, that got rid of the Aztec Empire, Montezuma. Those people that perpetuated violence to put us in the condition that we are, both physically and mentally, are not civilized. The books we read are books written by them, their history, telling the story their way, and we accepting it because the system that we're growing up under is a system that they established. Political system, American and parliamentary system of government, they established it, and all countries in Africa, except for those that are military right now, adopted that. And we forgot that we had cultural democracy, peerism in Igbo land, for example, age group system of government in Africa with elders. That was a form of democracy. Economic system of communalism. That was African. But we left all that. Those things that sustained us must be continued. Those things that sustained us before the Europeans came to Africa must be continued and synthesized for the 21st century. We failed to do it in the 20th century when we all got independence from Ghana to Kenya to Nigeria and what have you. Even to South Africa that got independence and Mandela became the president, went through apartheid. They have a government now. Does it look anything like Africa? No. When are we going to realize that we have to stop dancing to somebody else's drum beat and get busy being African? In politics, in science, in education, in our civic laws. Before the European came to Africa, we didn't have jails. We had a system, a judiciary process that guaranteed that people didn't break the law. We need to explore these things, our past, our history, things that we did before the European came to Africa. There is no way in the African community all over the world where anything African, both economic, judicial, politics, there is nothing African being practiced anywhere. But we think we've overcome because we now have the ability to walk around here, whether you're African American or Nigerian or whatever, with African clothes and African hat, and then think that you found your roots. When spiritually, you're a slave. You're still going to church on Sunday. You're still bound to the east and west 5 times a day as a Muslim. Religiously, you're not African. Economically, you're not African. Politically, you're not African. Your history that you espouse is not African. There is nothing about you as an African that is African, and you wonder why nobody is respecting you. But everything Europeans do is European. Everything the Japanese do is Japanese. Everything the Chinese do is Chinese. Wearing the clothes that belonged or was influenced by other cultures means nothing. That is called cross-cultural pollination. And to a certain extent, Chifike Nosimiri touched on it. You borrow things from other cultures, add it to your own, and make something of it. Those things that are not relevant in your culture, you jettison those things and throw them away. Because things that worked 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, 200 years ago, may not work in today's world. The world is dynamic in science and otherwise, and things change. Things that are relevant, that can add to your opulence, your economic mobility, add to you in science and what have you, you bring it in and get rid of what doesn't work. That's the way the world works. But the core foundation of who you are is maintained. You don't throw that away. And what is your core foundation? Your core foundation is your primordial spirituality, your cultural religion, your history. You must maintain that. The Europeans maintain theirs, the Chinese do, the Japanese do, the Indians do. Everybody that is relevant in this world, including the Jews, do. Even the Muslims do that. But you, nothing. So I understand the man in the video. I understand that to make himself feel important and relevant, he has to always espouse racism. He has to elevate himself above you because he's scared of you. He's also scared of what you might do to him if you actually really become free up here. If the chains are no longer here, he is afraid. That is a statement and the point of view of a man and people that are afraid of their own shadow of their sin, the sins of their fathers. So my thing to everybody is simply this. We have to become African again. Because everything about loss right now,
Yes.
we have lost it, except for our skin color. I'd be losing that too very soon.
That's right.
People are bleaching anyway.
Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I want to give Namdi a chance to say something so that I can answer some of the comments made by participants here. Let's not forget, we are not here preaching hate for anybody. We're just preaching pride, self-pride. We need to reclaim it. Reclaim your pride. Reclaim who you are. Nandi, your thoughts?
Yes, everything that was stated, absolutely from you both, actually from Chief Ikenna as well, on the way to on point. The measurement of intelligence has to start, number one, from not. It doesn't start from doing as others do. It's doing as you do and interacting with the rest of the world. I think one of the issues that we see and one of the issues that we have is we take the idea of competition to a completely different level, to the point where it's almost laughable. As far as being competitive on a global scale, it's necessary, but the level of competition, if you look at sports, look at the NBA, look at the NFL, look at any sport, any team that you would think and that you can think of on any sports platform or any whatever, you're not going to have individuals from a specific NBA team bringing in a group of children to play against the Miami Heat. You're not going to have a elementary school put their players against the Miami Heat in a game and think that it's going to be taken seriously. Unfortunately, we have the talent of the NBA players, but the mindset of the middle school or elementary school team, because we think that that's what's going to be competitive, without recognizing that we're supposed to get to that level mentally by seeing us at that level of being in the NBA. And at the same time, we're still looking to be coddled. We're still looking to be, we're trying to appease other individuals without actually playing to a level of being competitive, not with other people, but at least with ourselves, and saying, okay, we can be competitive, because that's where respect comes in. I think we also get we get the idea of respect messed up as well. There are no matter what the United States or European countries have done to a lot of these other ethnic groups, you're not going to lose. The United States is not going to lose the respect of Middle Easterns. They're not going to lose the respect of Asians. They're not going to lose the respect of other indigenous groups, because no matter what it is that they did, they still held on to what makes them who they are. No matter how much blood was shed, they still said to a point, you have to eliminate us completely before you will reduce us to something that you want us to be. And they said that's not going to happen. That's why a European can go to Japan for a business meeting, and as much as Europeans think, or Americans think, that they're at a position of dominance. Again, as I mentioned before, the United States dropped the bomb on Japan.
But if a United States businessman right now was to go to Japan and enter someone's house, you better take your shoes off.
Yep.
And you better bow.
That's right.
A Japanese man, businessman, can come to the United States, and during that process, that business process, the American is still going to try and find a way to speak that Japanese man's language, and he's still gonna bow.
Yep.
Yes.
What does that tell you?
Yep.
No matter what level of detriment history has brought upon one specific group of people based off of another, thinking they're above, if that individual still holds on to their culture on a spiritual level, you will still need to respect them. Period.
You said.
Yes.
It's not going to happen any other way. I cannot, me right now, as proud of an African as I am, I cannot just walk in to a Chinese restaurant in the hood. I cannot walk into a Chinese restaurant in the hood and be like, you are going to make me pounded yam. They're going to look at me crazy and go, get out of my store. Because I don't own that store. That's not my store. It's theirs. They have whatever it is they have written in their language. They cooking food for everyone else, but it's them that own it, and it's them that cooking it. And here's another thing. They cook what they want us to eat. They're eating something completely different.
Yeah.
So they can come into your community, set up shop in your community, cook what they want you to eat because it's fiscally and financially beneficial for them. And then they still in there cooking what they want to cook because they have the utensils and all the recipes and everything else to cook something traditional for themselves. But I guarantee you, if I walked in there and I said, ni hao or shishi, and I started speaking their language, they're gonna be like, wait a second. You don't want to eat that on the menu. Here, get him this. Because there's going to be identification, and I'm showing respect to their language, their culture, and they're going to start to show the same level of respect to me.
True that.
If they come into a Igbo community, I can greet them in English, but then if I start speaking to them in Igbo and one of them starts speaking to me in Igbo, then it's going to be, oh, holy crap, okay. Yeah, respect. There's equal respect when respect is shown.
Yep.
As melanated individuals in this country and even abroad, we are not showing enough respect for ourselves to be considered respectful or to even be respected by anyone else. That's the reason why we are continuously shown disrespect, because not because they think they're better than us, but we're proving it to them.
Yep.
Yes.
One of the things that I'm working on right now, and I kind of kicked myself a little bit. This is I always say this on me, but my mother says, no, it's her response. Right now, I can speak some Igbo, but I actually kind of regret, no, not even regret, I big regret the fact that I am not as fluent as I should be in my Igbo language. Because that's who I am. I know that when I go to my country, I'm going to get the respect that I demand and command because I speak where I come from. I can be wearing what I'm wearing right now, go to an Igbo community and speak fluent Igbo, and people are going to consider me an Igbo man. They don't have to know me, but if they get to know me, even though I'm speaking, then they'll recognize that I put my culture at the forefront of who I am. But when I speak my language, I'm going to demand respect not only for them, but from any other person that I speak Igbo to, because they're going to say, what language is that? And when I get to tell them that this is who I am because this is what my culture is. It's more than just me speaking a language. It's a recognition that because I'm holding myself at this level, I'm speaking my language, and I say that Chineke is what made me. They're going to say, who the heck is Chineke? Chineke is God. Well, why don't you just say that? I don't need to. Well, you know what? You have my respect. And that's from any person walking around this world right now. We get respect. And we demand respect when we demand it from ourselves.
Yep.
Others will begin to give that when we display that.
Yes.
Not just at a physical level, but on a spiritual level. And the spiritual is always from within, therefore it's going to resonate without. People can see me walking and tell I'm different than a lot of these individuals walking around. Not because of my skin tone, but because of how I carry myself. And they can recognize that there's something different about this individual. I can't say that he is the same person because he puts his culture and his spirituality at a different level. He recognizes who he is. And I recognize it just by my name. When I say my name is Nnamdi or Samiri. People look at me like, okay, your name is not John. It's not Jermaine. And no disrespect for anybody that has that name. Let me just put that out there.
Say it right.
But when they see and they hear my name, they say that's different. And when I hold my head up and say, you damn right, they're like, you know, I like you, big dog. I like you. And that's from everyone. I've had white people saying that is a beautiful name. Where is it from? I've had Asian people say that is a beautiful name. Where is it from? I've had Indian people say that is a beautiful name. Where is it from? And I've had some of my people say, huh? What does that tell you?
Inferiority complex.
Inferiority complex.
Yes. Yes.
When we begin to demonstrate the level of not superiority to anyone else, but when we begin to demonstrate a level of respect for ourselves, other people will recognize it. And then they will begin to say, you know what? I cannot deem this person to be unintelligent. I cannot deem this person to be anything less than what they are displaying themselves to be. I have to hold them at a certain level of respect because that is what they demand. Just for being who we are.
Absolutely.
On all levels.
Absolutely. Just being who we are. Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. You know, I have to go I have all these writings here that I just want to share some of them. Akachi Azubike said, if we don't speak our African mother tongue, we're illiterate. That's right. That is illiteracy. When you refuse. See, now, if you refuse, if it is that you don't know and you seek to know, it's one thing. You know, and as a parent, as Nambia said, I feel bad, you know, because I brought my children here. I had my children here, and I thought, okay, they have to fit into this community, this society. They need to speak English, right? Well, I should have been speaking Igbo. I should have been speaking Igbo. They would have learned the English anyway, but I was speaking English to them. But it's never too late, I always say to my kids. And I'm glad that they want to learn because they're always wanting to learn. And I speak it. You did Nandi Mare. There
you go.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
My internet. Okay. Yeah, working on it. You know, and Akachi is always one thing about Akachi. Akachi will always call you and want to know, how do you say this? Did I say it right? You know, I'm not sure where she goes and gets that information, but she will write it and then she will ask me, did I get it right? You know, and that's wonderful. That's just wonderful because knowing our mother tongue is very important. Now, Akachi also says most Africans, Black people, won't admit it, but they think, pardon me, they think that they are inferior. And that's why, quite frankly, we allow other groups to dominate our lives and dictate the society that governs them. It's true. It's true. When you're in Africa and your children are going to schools that don't teach them anything about their Africanness, then obviously it goes without saying that you are thinking that you're inferior. And so for your children to be superior, they have to be, you know, they have to embrace this Eurocentric teachings and act Eurocentric as well. And she also said, well, she offered some books that you all may want to read The Psychopathic Racial Personality by Dr. Bobby E. Wright. This is written by a black man, obviously. We need to start reading some of our black books. And then here's one here, Urugu, an African-centered critique of European cultural thought and behavior by Dr. Marimbo Ani. Okay, so I haven't read that book, but it's an interesting one, particularly the European cultural thought. It's a critique. I would like to read that. And then this is Akachi again. She says that the Iceman Inheritance. Yes, I've read that one. Prehistoric Sources of Western Man's Racism, Sexism, and Aggression by Michael Bradley. Forward by Dr. John Henry Clark. I have that book right there. Yes, it's a good book. If you haven't read it, The Iceman Inheritance, you must. That's a good book. Thank you, Akachi, for sharing that. Then Exterminate All the Brutes. I haven't read that one. One Man's Odyssey into the Heart of Darkness and the Origins of European Genocide by Venn, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, linguist. Okay, I haven't read that one, but that's an interesting one we should look into. And let's see. Trying to see what other things that we can just go over. Now I wrote this one. A negative stereotyping of low status racial populations is ever present in the public consciousness. I talked about that, and it does affect our relationship with other people. When people look down on you, immediately they don't see you. I don't know how many of you have seen this video of this young black guy. He will extend his hand and ask people to shake it. If you shake his hand, he'll give you a telephone, a new telephone, an iPhone, right? It never fails. Once he extends his hand, majority of the time to a black person, the black person will shake his hand. Majority of the time, nobody will shake his hand. Occasionally, maybe a white person, but it is rare for an Asian to shake his hand. UD Namdi, you probably know the video I'm talking about. It's on, I think it's YouTube. All right, UD, check it out. I'll find the name and I'll give it to you. Rarely, immediately the Asians see him, they run. It's like they're having a heart attack. It's like, oh my goodness, particularly the females. Okay, the white females and males, for the most part, they, no. Which I can understand. I don't know who you are. I don't know where your hand's been. So I may reject it. But the black people, for the most part, will reach out to him and shake his hand. All right, or dab you or something. But it just shows the spirit of our people. Our people are social. Social. If I use the expression, social animals. We love to interact with other people. But if you see that you can, it's a social sort of experiment, I suppose. But you can see how if it's a white person who extends his hand, everybody shakes it. And I follow that to see nobody rejects the white man with his extended hand, but they'll reject, or they show this black man with glasses on like he's blind, right? And it seems like he needs help, but nobody will give him any help. Very rare, he wants to walk with you, and they'll jump like, oh my goodness, what is this? But for the most part, a black person will extend their hand and let him hold it. Those kinds of things, it tells you about our spirit. We're very kind people, but depending on the society we find ourselves, we start to acquire the personalities of the people that in the nation we live in, and we start acting like that. Okay, but for the most part, no African person says no to him, for the most part. But many people of other races say no to him. But it tells you it's conditioning, it's social conditioning. They've been taught that this person is inferior. You don't want to touch his hand. You want to be around him. He's scary, so you run. That's what I observe, and it's just amazing. It's just amazing how social stereotyping and conditioning impacts our relationship with our world. Akimi Bro says, gives heart. Okay. Let's see any other comments here. And then Akachi says there was a debate between Igbo traditionalists and Christians and the Ordinala traditionalists said we share the same ancestors, starting with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What? You see that?
I need to talk about this stuff, man.
We
That's
share
what I was going to
ancestors,
talk about.
but we're not talking about our own ancestors. We're talking about we came from someone. You need to go ahead and talk about that. Go ahead and talk about it.
Yeah, I just want to say it. I want everybody to look at me in the face when I say this, and it's going to get people upset, but that's what I'm here for, to get you upset. This ordinary thing that people talk about is just a bunch of nonsense, okay? Let's just call it what it is. We try to be respectful because we understand that everybody has a right to worship God in the way they understand best, regardless of what their creed or what their color is, and without bitterness. We get that because the traditional religion of the Akan has the same premise as that of the Igbo person. The traditional spirituality or religion of the Zulu has the same premise as that of the Kenyan in the Maasai tribe. It's all the same. The premise is the same, but the system of worship differs based on your location. Your geography is responsible for how you approach God worship or supplication. But let's get something straight. As far as sub-Saharan Africans are concerned, I don't really care much about the Abrahamic lineage of religion, Judaism, Islam, and Christianism. They're all one and the same. They just differ in the idea of who's a Messiah and who is a prophet, blah, 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 blah. We get that. But when you espouse African religion, whether you're Maasai, Zulu, Igbo, Ordinani, Senegalese, Ghanaian, and you sell the idea that the African ancestor is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you're fake. I'm just going to say it. And you could try to prove me wrong, but you will fail. You're fake. You're a Black African. If you don't want to say it, I'm saying it, and you heard it on Chasing Life. Your ancestor cannot be Abraham. My ancestor is Ifenta and Ada, the first man and woman that Chineke created. Just like for the Greek culture, Prometheus is the first man, and Pandora is the first woman. That's Greek mythology. And in my mythology, because that's what it is Ifenta and Ada. It is not Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve has nothing to do with me as a Black African. So if you espouse Ordinary and your ancestor is Adam and Eve, Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac, then your Ordinary is fake. And I am praying, I'm hoping that the rest of the people that espouse Ordinary and claim that it's Igbo religion, which I don't claim, it better be that this is just an offshoot of somebody who knows nothing and gets on there and espouses that they are Ordinary. And I'm going to make it short of what I'm saying now, and I'm putting it on the internet from Chasing Life. If you espouse the spirituality or religion of Ordinary and claim that it's Igbo, and your ancestor is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you're fake. That's all I got to say. Fake. Fake, unreal, and if
that's the truth. I mean, I was shocked. Wait, what?
Yeah, hold on. If you're Igbo, African American, and you're looking for your spirituality in Igbo land, and they come with you with Ordinary, your first question should be: is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob my ancestors? If they say yes, they're fake and lying to you.
Then they are correct.
It has to be said.
Oh my God. Okay, that had to be said, because you can't deny. If you're a traditionalist, how can you say that we all our ancestors started with Abraham, Jacob, and Isaac?
Really?
Come on.
What are you talking about?
Anyway, the other comment from Akachi is everyone is scared to be African because they think they'll go to hell. Yes, they think they'll go to hell. The hell is a mind thing. If you believe you're going to go somewhere worse than where you already are, then you're in hell, because you are living in hell because you're living a life or in a world that has been defined for you, that has nothing to do with your reality, and you think You think there's a place worse than that? There's no place worse than where we are mentally. That's hell. You're looking for hell when you die. No, hell is right here. When you think you're inferior to any human being, you are in hell. If you think being an African is bad, because if you being an African will make you go to hell, then you're already in hell. You don't have to wait till you die. You're already there. Just deal with it.
That's what I said.
If being who you are makes you if it scares you to be African because you may go to hell, don't worry about going to hell, baby. You're already there. You're already there. Yep. You don't take Uber, don't take Lyft, don't die. You are in hell. Stay right there. People will say, Iwu onuku. Iwu onuku, you have no sense.
Big time. No sense.
You have no sense. You haven't learned anything. You're wasting my time. Anybody who thinks being black, being African is going to send them to hell, you're already in hell. The next one is from, let's see, Maurice Steele Goit. He says, we think that the white man's ice is colder. And that's the truth. We think that their things are better than anything that's white is better. Don't blame the person that's doing that to you. You cannot complain about what people are doing to you when you allow it. You know what? They have already somebody poison your cup, right? And then they walk away. You saw the poison, but you picked up the poison and you drank it. Who do I blame? I blame you because you knew it was poison in there.
And drank it.
But because now white man, you drink it. Because the white man gave it to you, it's good. Maybe it's not so bad. Because this is what we do on a daily basis. We assume anything that has to do with us is less. We're less than. I don't walk like that. I may not be. Look, if one thing I am, I'm a proud black woman. I will not step anywhere and make me think I'm less than they are. Can you hear me? I don't know. No. Somebody had difficulty pronouncing my name. I said, I will teach you until you say it right. Is it Awa? No. It's Uwa. Uwa? No, not Uwa. Uwa. You're going to get it right. If I can say Sandy, you're going to get this Uwa right.
I know that's right.
So if they call you out of your name, you don't just walk away. You don't walk away and say, well, they didn't get it right. When I was in college, I was sitting in a mezzanine and this bunch of white kids were calling, trying to get me to open the door. I couldn't open the door because it was against the rules. They knocked and started calling me names. N-word, N-word, N-word. And I looked around. I didn't see anybody else there. It was just me. So I didn't pay them any attention. So finally, I went up to them. I didn't open the door, but I could talk to them. I told them that the N-word is not here. It's just me here. But if you go to the front desk, they'll call her down for you. I don't accept a name that's not mine. I told them N-word is not here. Go to the front desk. They'll call her down. The only person here is me. So you don't accept inferiority. It's true story. So it you don't think that theirs is better, and you must not accept anything given to you. Deterrence. Africans must learn and utilize this political strategy. Yes, deterrence. Akachi, you're right. You're right, because the Asians, you know who to mess with. People know who to mess with. They will not mess with the Asians because they will come at you like white on rice. They will not tolerate you degrading them or hurting. History has taught them not to accept. Mba, 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 no. But us, hey, if somebody tells me tells a black person to hit that other black person, we say, I hit him and kick him too.
Yep, all day.
There's no deterrence. But if they know that they cannot be doing all this stuff, they will not do it. Human nature is such that if you want, do you know how many big men have withdrawn from fighting a short guy? The audacity of that short guy thinking he can beat that big man scares the big man. And he's standing there, short as he is. He said, come on, come on. And the big guy doesn't know what he knows. You know, maybe he knows something I don't know. He said, I'm not going to mess with you, shrimp. Come on with it. But deterrence, we have to deter people from doing these things to us. Don't take it. And the worst part of things that we do, what we allow to happen, is when one of us is getting hurt, we start taking pictures. No pictures, no videos. You know what I mean. I'm gonna let that go. Europeans respect Asians because yes, not deference, deterrence. That's right. Maurice still says that white people make up stories for them, and that's cool. But the problem is that black people are following it. Thank you, Maurice.
Yeah.
They make up the stories, we follow. We don't make up our own. We just follow it. If now you know Rumpel sticks, not Rumpel. It was the story of the girl with the long blonde hair.
Rapunzel. Rapunzel.
It's a Rapunzel.
Rapunzel.
So what we gonna do? We gonna make her black. Rapunzel. That's what I'm saying. We're gonna make her black. Why you want to make her black? Don't you have your own stories?
Thank you.
The Little Mermaids. We gotta make her black. Why do you have to color their stories to suit you? Create your own and make a big deal of your own. We have Africans have stories galore. Build your own up. You see what I'm saying? Okay, so we follow their stories. Whatever they come up with, we follow it. We're just as happy. We're just as happy. Oh, and then we go to the movie theater. Oh my God, the Little Mermaid is black. And the little girls are so excited. It's black. What's the big deal? He's still surrounded by Europeans. Just a little token black woman. And that's what I see. And the Europeans who are making these movies, they know we follow them. So they can change the character, the color of the character that they created. And because they know we're going to flock the movie theater because we're just so excited. They made it black. Hercules, we're so happy. We can create the same thing. Our black people are rich enough. You know what I'm saying? We don't have to change the color of their stories. I saw this story, but it's a cartoon of Hansel and Gretel. It was a Nigerian who made that story, and their Hansel is black, Gretel is black. And all the stories where Nigerians get, now that one you see, you have to change them to to black for it to be meaningful. For what? What is the purpose? Anyway, that's that story. I'll have you. Someone said to me at work, I'm not going to bother trying to remember that. It's too hard. That is herning. See, evidently, somebody at work can't pronounce Akachineke. So she says, oh, it's too hard to remember. But Polish names are not easy. Oh, but she'll remember that. She'll remember German names. She'll remember everything, but it's hard to pronounce a black name. Akachi, you tell her, this is Akachineke until she can pronounce it. Tell her, don't open her mouth to call you again. They need to learn to pronounce your word. And this person says, this is Kalfani says, our children will pay dearly for our inferiority. That's right. They're already paying for it. They're already paying for it. I told you guys the story about the big man in Nigeria buying this white doll. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with white doll. Children need to play with all sorts of dolls. There's nothing wrong with a child playing with white doll. But that was because she preferred the white doll. They preferred the white doll. There were black dolls there. The little tiny you see, the big dolls are white and the little black dolls are so tiny, you can't even see them. And that's what they give our children. Our children are paying for it. We made that man feel real bad. We told him, you don't buy that for her. Is she going to have a white baby when she grows up? Come on, tell her black baby is okay. So those are the kinds of things that are going on in our world, and we are allowing others to define, dictate, we embrace. And that is unhealthy. So that's the reason why the kind of people that we saw on that video exist. That's just one man out of millions. So we have to be that one. Each one of us have to. If you're not doing that already, you need to start. When you see somebody doing something that you consider that is inappropriate, incorrect, correct them or teach them how to do it. If they can't say your name, teach them how to say your name. Your name has meaning, and no, you will not become Susan. You will not become Erin. You will not become Erica. Your name is Aka Chineke. If he cannot pronounce it, too bad. Tell her or him, don't call you your name anymore. I was proud when I gave my son Namdi, Kelena, Adonha. My grandchildren, Ikenna, Amoha. Ikenna, my husband is Ikenna. There's names, UD gave his children African names as well. Names to be proud of. Names to be proud of. Hey, listen, UD, parting words. We've gone over today.
Yeah.
You have any comments? And
no, just real
then
quickly.
we'll go to you.
Yeah, if you don't respect yourself, nobody's going to respect
That's right.
you. Let me say this again.
Period.
If you don't respect yourself, don't expect anybody to respect you. Charity begins at home. Yes. You have to be pretty on the inside before it can show on the outside. And as long as you justify your worth as a Black person or as an African by standards that are not of your own, you're going to continue to be disrespected.
Yes. Thank you. That's right. Yagazie. Yes. Yes. UD, Nandi, sorry.
Yes. Once again,
Nandi, do you have any parting words?
Yeah. Thank you. Once again, thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you for inviting me. Our intelligence is not to be measured over someone else. Someone else's thought processes of us doesn't necessarily mean that they're more intelligent than us, and us boasting doesn't make us more intelligent than anyone else. The idea is to, once again, uplift ourselves and recognize who we are, what we are, where we come from, because it'll allow us to recognize where we are right now and where we're going. Mm-hmm. The goal is not to put ourselves above anyone else, but to put ourselves at a place where we can work in tandem with the rest of the world, because we're not looking for acceptance.
Yes.
We're looking for acknowledgement. We're looking for individuals to say, you are who you are, and I respect that. Right. But we have to start by saying that about ourselves.
Yes.
No one else is going to do it if we don't. And that's it.
That's right. Yagazie. Thank you so much, Dibia UD. Thank you, UD Namdi. Thank you so much for all of you who joined us today. Thank you very much. We're looking forward to seeing you again next Sunday. And thank you for your contributions. Your contributions today was really on point. Thank you, Kalfani Kwame Anu. Thank you, Akachineke. Maurice Still Goit, Emeka. Those are the ones that made the comments that I see here. Thank you all so very much for being with us. And we certainly look forward to seeing you again next week. And so it is.